Hi friends, I have to make a video on this because it pisses me off. So, I'm sitting here reading the comments on the video I made on LiJo's channel earlier. This video here, you can see it. And I read this from Manny Cracker. If this is the same person who I watched getting high while typing Joyce, I'm sort of turned off by this. I don't really feel like being stoned is a terribly respectful way to exist in the world. Cognitively, being sober seems like a good baseline for any interaction that deals with personal development. I mean, your definition of sober and mine are very different things, right? For one thing, the fact is, just because alcohol, drugs, or whatever don't work well with your identity is not a good reason to presume that they're not going to work well with mine, or that they're an unhealthy thing. Your attempt to pathologize me here as having a problem is, in fact, the problem. Because why? We can judge people when they engage in morally impermissible behaviors. Nothing morally impermissible about my behavior. You might be able to judge me as having a problem or suffering from some sort of addiction or something if there were any evidence of it at all. The key thing here to note is how Manny Cracker precisely avoids addressing me on my merits. They're so desperate to reduce me to one thing he doesn't like. He doesn't like the fact that I smoke weed. First of all, when I smoke weed, I'm not sober, okay? If you've watched me at all, by any meaningful metric of sobriety, I would pass any sobriety test in the history of the world after smoking weed. So your notion that I'm stoned, being stoned is I don't feel as though being stoned is a terribly respectful way to exist in the world. Respectful to whom? Who am I disrespecting? I know clearly who you're disrespecting. One of us is actually disrespecting. Who? Is it me by smoking weed? I'm not telling you to smoke weed. I have no interest in what you do. I don't care. You probably drink alcohol occasionally. Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. Maybe you get a runner's high. Or maybe you do retail therapy. Or whatever. Everybody has their firefighters. The question is, are you willing to pathologize somebody? That's the real question. Are you willing to say, I like dismissing people because of behaviors that don't seem to resonate to me as good, even though I see absolutely no symptoms in that individual that they're bad? What indication does anybody have that marijuana is negatively impacting my life? Does it make me dumb? Am I inadequately robust in my articulation of things? Do I fail to justify my claims adequately? No. That would maybe be an indication of somebody who's negatively mentally impacted. Or it could be a description of this guy's comment, right? The most important takeaway, though, is this person is not voicing a real opinion, right? They're not voicing a legitimate thought on marijuana, on drug use, or anything like that. If they were, they would point to problems caused by the purportedly bad behavior. They would point how, after I blow out a bong rip, I can no longer articulate myself. I can no longer express myself, and I don't make any sense. But that's simply not the case. If, in fact, marijuana was such a terrible impact on my life, then why not critique something I said or did in the video to show that, in fact, these are the harms of it? Instead, this sanctimonious MFer has chosen to reduce me and every other marijuana smoker in the country to less than fully human, to be pathologized. There's something wrong with you. Now, look, the reality isn't, of course, that I'm the weed smoker. It's that I'm the only person who does it in front of everybody because I think it's important that we have this kind of argument, that we have this kind of discussion. I think it's important that people like the commenter there get shamed, as is well their due, as is well their due for prioritizing irrelevant factors and pathologizing a perfectly legitimate behavior. If this is the same person who I watched getting high while typing Joyce, you don't have to hire me to type you, okay? If I do type you, you should know by now that I sit here and smoke bong rips. You'll note, of course, it makes absolutely no impact, zero impact at all, on the conversation. It never comes up in conversation. I also smoke cigarettes. That also doesn't come up in conversation. As I've explained before, for somebody who smokes weed all the time, somebody who's been smoking weed since he was 14 years old, it's not like a drug. It's much, much more like cigarettes than it is like a drug. But your preconceptions, your biases, your hate, I mean, to me, that's hate speech. That's real hate speech. That's the kind of hate speech that suggests the individual making it is a spiteful, pitiful, and shame-worthy, horrible person. After all, they spend their time dehumanizing others, not for things they did or said, but for things that are totally irrelevant. He's not criticizing me because I'm wrong. I'm not saying anything wrong. I didn't type Joyce poorly. He's not criticizing me because I was rude to Joyce or in any way unprofessional in dealing with Joyce. He's just designated the thing he doesn't like as necessitating all those things. And, of course, I'm vastly more correct than he is. He would never be able to make an argument anywhere close to as good at this. And that's after I pull the bong rip. So, this is the thing. Just to be very, very clear. Manny Cracker and also R Button. Both of you two. Shame on you. Shame on you for being such hateful people. The end.